represents everybody. So he's the vice president head of that as well, okay? So there are people who are going to give us a lot of insights into how sports came about to be such a big sport in Spain, okay? We also have in our midst various other celebrities and our guests from overseas. Inigo, who's the commercial director at Atletico de Madrid, one of the biggest clubs in Spain, and as he says, it's got the most passionate fans out there. So how do they go out and suffuse this enthusiasm, okay, in all of these millions of people who follow them in that sense, okay? Sanjay ji, I wanted to ask you very simply, is sports on the agenda of universities at all, or are we paying lip service?
So thank you very much for inviting me here, and I'm very happy that I'm amongst the wonderful gathering of people from sports industry and sports, and happier because we have school students with us. As you said about university, before I talk about that, I must talk about the schools. The sports can start actually from schools, not from the universities. Because if you are to be a player, real player, or you want to go to some national level or international level specifically, that you need to start learning from the school. I have seen some of my friends whose kids are studying in school, but they have sent them abroad in Canada or in some other countries for a particular sport to learn. Unfortunately, we lack good coaches in India if we are to compete internationally. As far as LPU is concerned, or university system in India is concerned, first I talk about LPU. At LPU, we definitely put a lot of emphasis upon sports. We take students, those who are expert in the game, without any fees, without any hostel charges, without any fee charges. Rather, we pay them additionally from our own pocket to recruit them. So this is one. Second, our LPU campus is 600-acre campus, and out of this 600 acre, we have dedicated 200 acres to golf alone. The fields are under construction or underway. We have recently made indoor stadium. This stadium has 20 badminton courts, 6 squash courts, Olympic-sized swimming pool, Olympic-sized diving pool, Olympic-sized warm-up pool, shooting range, of course other table tennis, boxing, all other games are also there. It's around 1.7 lakh square foot covered area, the single building which we have recently built, and we are about to construct. The plans have been finalized for stadium, cricket stadium with 30,000 capacity inside the campus. But I'm talking about everything has been done inside the campus. Because we do feel if we are to grow, we are to make our students grow in life, they can't do without sports. We always put a lot of emphasis upon two things other than academia, sports and cultural events. Because these two things make students real citizens and real corporate worker or real professional.
So, Mr. Mittal, I think that there is a huge onus on people such as yourselves. Because when you cater to 140,000 students, obviously many more apply and whatever it is, and you possibly deal, at the last count, how many, Pratham, how many schools did you get intakes from?
I think he would have the better answer.
We are taking students from more thousands of schools. We take around 10,000 students every year.
So the reason I asked that question is,
must be 2,000 schools, the student, more than 2,000 even.
So the reason
because
that
we go across the country, and we go to schools also to tell them what we are.
So you go to schools as well. Now the reason I asked that question is that as we go forward, okay, the sum and substance of the debate, Mr. Mittal, that has been happening since yesterday, and Pratham might have briefed you a little bit, is it is abundantly clear that sports as a sector is a sunrise sector right now. It's going to take off in a big way. And as you said,
I agree to that.
and as you said, if colleges can only refine the raw material that they get
From schools.
then it is also incumbent on the schools to be doing something.
Absolutely correct.
But more importantly, the problem is that the principals of and the teachers of the schools that are the feeders to you think that only academics is the way to get into colleges. Now, schools to say, look, that so what are your thoughts on that? And would SportEX look forward to help and support from you in evangelizing this whole thinking?
I do agree to what you have said, and I'm also supporter of these views that sports should start from the childhood. Rather it starts from home rather than from school. I remember one of my family friends, his son was 6 months old or maybe 9 months old. He used to take him to lawn tennis. He was a lawn tennis player himself. So we asked him, why do you take him there? Well, so let him see today. Once he see today, then he will feel like participating in that sport tomorrow. So rather it starts from the childhood rather than from schools. And yes, but I have seen there is a change of attitude in school education, and very happy. I think the students sitting here, must be witnessing that. Schools also have started putting emphasis upon sports. You are DOSCO, you know better than me. I think in those schools or all good schools, it is compulsory to play 2 sports a semester, 4 sports a year.
That's true. You have to play all sports whether you like it or not.
Like it or not. That's a very good culture the boarding school or other schools are also giving to students.
And eventually it becomes not about participating in a sport, but it becomes about a loyalty and a team spirit and all of those sort of things, that you may have very limited capabilities in something, but you've got to give out your best because you're playing for your house or your college or your school or whatever it is. So is that sense of competition that is there, isn't that, brother?
Definitely. So our school was extremely competitive when it came to sports, both inter-school and intra-school. And a lot of the learnings that we had at the school level while playing these sports, they transcend into even today when we're running our own businesses, when we have to work in teams, when we have to motivate our teams. And all of those lessons on the cricket field, on the soccer field, on the hockey field obviously come back to us every time, we have a bad quarter and we have to motivate the team again. So definitely everything comes back.
Right.
I would also like to add here one very important thing which is generally missed. Sport, when you play a sport, especially which is competitive one, and supposing you're playing badminton and you, of course, you're competing against someone else who is playing on the opposite side. You have to take decisions in milliseconds. How to lift the shot, how to take the shot, and that increases your mental competencies. I think we should not forget that. Of course, it helps in better health, no doubt about that, but more than that, it increases your mental capabilities also.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with him more. I think we had this discussion just earlier on in the morning with some of you athletes. The top athletes have the best minds, because how do you strategize for 10 seconds? You have to strategize for 10 seconds. If you learn, if you're a 100-meter sprinter, 12 seconds or 13 seconds, whatever that number is, or a 400 meters, 40, 50 seconds, whatever you take for that, you have to strategize for that, right? And if you can strategize for 10 seconds or 45 seconds, then you're doing much better than somebody who's got to strategize for 6 months, if you see what I mean. Because it's second nature to you. You're already strategizing for a 10-second thing. You say, oh, strategizing for 6 months is easy in that sense. So I completely agree with you, sir. But, you know, coming to that point, there's a responsibility that colleges have in terms of the people who get fed into them, okay? The messaging to the principals, to the students out there has to be that, look, sports is going to be having an incredible weightage when you guys come in here, okay? For the simple reason that if not today, tomorrow, in your top line, sports is going to be maybe 10% of the top line. And it could go up significantly more to about 20%. In the US, etc., we've seen that. What are your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely correct. Unfortunately, we as a university system, I'm talking about LP alone, but as university system, we do not put much emphasis upon that. But in Punjab, all universities in sports, even government universities are doing very well. Always this the top sports trophy Makkah is backed by some of the Punjab universities. So, but you're right, it will certainly help. Of course, it will take time, but we have to start the journey somewhere. And if we start it today, we'll be definitely successful in tomorrow, as happens in US and in some other European countries.
So Pratham, you're the young face of the educational system in India. You've yourself gone through a education which you just said has been valuable because you learned 70% of what life offers you on the sports field and how you have to behave in that life. How are you going to, after the sessions that you have heard between yesterday and today, how are you going to put on that young face and going and talking to the various schools, etc., that look guys, the rules of the game are changing, okay? And the focus that you thought sports had is going to be inordinately higher when we in LPU are concerned, and obviously others.
Definitely. So I'll tell you a story here. So I was a national swimmer, and I had a silver medal in backstroke, and in India. And so when I went to college in the US, I went to the swimming coach in the university and I told him I have an Indian national silver medal. And the coach is like, all right, you must be really good. I was like, yeah, I think so. I was very arrogant at that time. And then he's like, all right, let's do a small lap and show me how you're going to compete with my existing students. And to be very frank, I hardly could even finish because the students who were already there in the US, who were not national medalists there, who were just representing the university, were beating me by 2, 3, 4 seconds, which in a 30-second race is a lot, right? So what I realized was that, you know, the best of India, at least in swimming, stood nowhere, even at a university level in the US. And so the reason for that was that, you know, after a lot of thought that I put, the reason was that in school or even before school, we never had access to those levels of coaching standards as well as coaches that could really sort of bring out that talent in me. I definitely was a good swimmer, but it's only a matter of 2, 3, 4 seconds, right, between a silver medal and a gold medal. So if I had access to good coaches in my school, even though I went to one of the better schools in the country that focuses a lot on sports, we still do not have a swimming coach there, right? And so if I had access to coaches, so I think my agenda moving forward would be to really figure out a way to, first of all, find good coaches, and second of all, train the coaches as well to become better coaches, and figure out a way to sort of make sure that every school, every university has access to these coaches. I think that would be step number 1 towards making sure that we can do something at the sport, at the university and the school level.
My question to you was different. Are you going to stand out there and go to the different schools and say that the criteria for admissions is going to be different? This is how you see the admissions criteria in the next 5 years, and it's not the chancellor who's got to go. It's got to be a young guy who's got to be going out there and convincing all the principals that the rules of the game have changed. You know, all of these guys are national level players sitting in front of you out here. They are all asking questions, and in a minute they will be asking these questions. Have the rules of the game changed? Or they all have got board exams next week, right guys? Okay? So do they get those extra 2% out there, or should they be expanding their skills? Are you going to be in the forefront talking about this to schools?
I mean, I can definitely promise that the criteria of the game will change, that the admission criteria will change, that there will be certain, if not grace marks, something along those lines that will be given to students who excel in sports. But at the same time, to do justice to that commitment, I have to have good coaches, right? I cannot just take them and nurture them in a sort of a lackluster way and promise them the world that tomorrow you will be a national, international player.
Pratham, let me just sort of preface that. I mean, I'm just extending your argument. I think you require good coaches, not only, you require them at the school level, and you require them at the college level, right? At both levels. Right. Because if the raw material that you get, which, Mr. Mittal was talking about, okay? The raw material that you get from the schools is what you will polish in the college level, right? And if you've got to have a revenue approach to that, then it's a serious thing. You can't just take it as, oh, this is a social activity that we are doing. Right. This is a CSR activity. No, it's not to be looked at as a CSR activity. It's about investing in sports. Right. It's about thinking of sports as a viable business option. And I keep coming back to that it is not that, acha, this is a good thing to do, so let's just do this. It's about looking at it as a viable business option, and you will take the necessary steps to be doing that. If you start up an engineering division, you just don't say, okay, I'm going to just start it up. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to hire the right guys from the IIT or whatever it is to give it the boost that it requires. Correct, sir? I would imagine that it is incumbent on all the universities and the colleges, etc., to be looking at it from that perspective. It's the investment that you will make in it. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
You're right, Ji. Definitely. All of us as a system need to invest in sports because it will help us definitely in terms of better output of manpower, in terms of better medals for our country in the future, and in terms of even better revenue, better revenue for our students also, pass-outs also in the times to come.
And one more thing, which is, sports, and this was the subject matter of the panel before this. Sports, even if you don't do anything, okay, there's a sense of discipline. There's a sense of teamwork that comes through. And those are the intangibles that stand you in good stead. Something which you learned in your school out there, it's an intangible, right? Nobody can quantify it, but when you start working, it kicks into place on an automatic basis, right?
You're right. I would also like to add, the students who are participating in sports are getting better placements in the corporates also.
Well, there you go. I'll share a couple of stories from my own school. This guy was a top athlete. He got admission in St. Stephen's College because of sports in our time, okay? So only 1 or 2 people used to get taken in sports in St. Stephen's College. And this guy got the Rhodes Scholarship on the basis of his sports. And he became a top banker, although he should have become an athlete in that sense, okay? So I think those stories will be multiplied as you go forward right now, okay? At this stage, I'd like to open up this discussion by asking you guys in the front row and at the back to be asking questions of the panel out here. Can we have some mics out there? Anybody has any questions? Come on, young guys, this is your time. Okay, now Mandeep, can we begin with you? Please come. Inigo, please welcome out here. Thank you. Atletico de Madrid is about one of the most passionate football clubs in Spain. You also worked with, previously before that with Real, right? Okay, previously he's worked, okay, that's not the point. I didn't want to bring up that club out there. There's a great rivalry between them. But, you know, he's worked across some of the greatest clubs out there. And the system out there is such that you catch the sportsmen and the sports enthusiasts at a very young age, and you grow them into the culture of the sporting ecosystem and the club ecosystem, as it were, right? Inigo, could you just talk us through the system and how do you work towards creating that brand which goes out and makes so much meaning to that? And I'll tell you the relevance to education in that in a second.
Well, thanks for that. Well, the first thing when I'm listening to you is perhaps understanding the difference between European sports and American sports, right? In America, universities are fighting for the best talents, and they are becoming sports brands themselves. And the most of the sport young systems are around the education system and universities, which is probably what you are discussing here. In Europe, it doesn't work like that. Universities and education is just for brains. And then all sports is regulated through federations, which we have some representatives from Spain here. So each federation creates structures from the lower categories, from 4 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, in every sport. So in every age, you can really compete. If you are 6 and you like swimming, there is a competition out there through the federation. You can have your coach, and at different levels. So you can actually compete in every sport at every age. I think this is something that perhaps you should consider here in India. And then what we do as a club is to benefit from that system. So we have Atletico Madrid's lower categories players in almost every age. We have now more than 2,000, I would say, families, dreams, children playing in our academies. 500 of them are women, by the way. Our women team is champion in Spain in the La Liga. We are very keen on that. And what we do is to take advantage a little bit of the competition that already exists. So our clubs are competing in all the structure where the federation, the football federation has leagues. We have 2,000 kids. And then we separate between the ones we identified from the very young age they have within talent to develop, and the ones which we think may develop talent further, because sometimes with 4 years old we don't have talent, but with the work you develop it with 8 or with 9. And we try to do a pyramid of people. Obviously, some of them will become professional football players, but what we are also doing is to build education and personality and to incorporate the values of Atletico Madrid into that education. On our values, I think everything you do as a brand has to come from your personality. This was your first question. And it was also related when you were talking about creating personalities in India. I think you have to be brave to work on your personality and your values. And my recommendation is that you be yourself, because everyone else is taken. So Atletico Madrid, we are very clear on our values. It's about passion and feelings. It's about work before performance. It's about technology and innovation. And it's about legacy and tradition.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Inigo. I think that's very insightful. You know, I was just leaning back and having a chat with the Chancellor out here. It is incumbent on the universities and the schools to create role models and sporting icons. Because if the management and the establishment sort of endorse those personalities, then, you know, sporting heroes are built in the legal domain. Otherwise, what happens is, you know, the management domain says the debater is the best person. Okay? The informal grapevine says, no, this guy is really great because, you know, he's a champion in sport, etc. So there's a conflict out there. This is what was happening in our time, and I'm sure, are you in agreement with that?
Definitely, but I think still things are changing. The people who win medals in sports, at least at the university, so whenever someone wins an Asian Games medal from the university or a national medal, what we do is we put them on Facebook, we sort of create a brand out of them within the university.
I'm going to stop you right there. Personality building does not happen with winning medals, period. Personality building happens as soon as you realize that this person has potential, you're going to start putting it up. Why? Because once that thing gets done, that, you know, you've caught this guys, you're projecting 10 people to being possible winners of the future and 5 make it out there, you know, there are going to be a number of people who will then want to be in sports because they know that, okay, I'm reaching level 1 of this. I know from a fact that you guys have a very strong social media platform, right? Which caters to all of the 140,000 students and their families and whatever it is. So you're reaching millions of people already. All right? So I think there is a responsibility that digital platforms have in creating the culture, the educational system of our country. Because the discussion, sir, yesterday was that my contention was that sports is going to be for India what information technology did for India 20 years ago. The number of people who can get employment at different levels, you know, whether it is in participating in sports, whether it is as coaches, whether it is as sub-coaches, whether it's as referees, whether it is as all the sorts of sports services that go around with it, okay? The number of people who could get employment, and that's only if you talk about one sport. If you talk multiple sports, then your infrastructure is being used 24/7, 10 months or 12 months a year in that sense. So there is a huge ecosystem that will get built up. That's how you get to, we were discussing yesterday, and what Inigo just said. How do you otherwise, you know, individual colleges, Pratham, you raised this point, are making $200 million. Right. Individual colleges are making $200 million on the top line through sports. So there is no getting away from the fact.
Just to the brand rights and...
just to brand rights, etc. in that sense. And
that's add-on.
That's add-on, yeah. And the 140,000 may soon become 280,000 thanks to the strong brand that you create in that sense. Okay. Next question, please. Jagjeev, you had your hand up. Go on.
Yeah, so my question really is that if the belief is that a sports person, and not talking of a professional sports person, but somebody who's played at the amateur level, played for his house, played in school, who plays, is actually a better corporate performer, does better in life, then why don't colleges have a criteria to give preference to these people when they select people to come to college?
Unfortunately, our entry-level system in universities and colleges is governed by the government of India. And they say, generally entrance test, you can take admissions only through the way of entrance test, written entrance test. There is no system where you can take students on the basis of the way the US university take the students. And the 1/3 weightage is given to these kind of activities, which is totally lacking in India, which is very bad. But at the same time, there is special quota for sports students as per the government regulations. But that is available to only AQ students who have done some medal at national or international. So that's the weakness of our system. That we definitely need to change. And of course, we being in private sector, it's our duty to come forward to some alternative mechanism to get into admission into good university or college. But that requires major policy change.
So you don't have freedom to tweak your admission rules as a university?
We do have, but at the same time, we have to be very near to the government of India's regulations. If we try to divert, some allegation is put on us that we are manipulating. And we being in private sector have to be more careful than the government university.
There's licensing still involved out there. Jagjeev, the simple answer to that is that. But the good news is that the political system is listening. We heard yesterday from the minister that they are pushing for sports to come across at the school levels, okay, and that the syllabus is halved. I was in jest, in the joke I was asking the kids out here, do they want to write the exams this year or next year, in that sense. But, you know, I've called on stage Mr. Siddharth Upadhyay. Siddharth runs the Stairs NGO and is a mover and shaker in the sports sector. He does school sports across maybe 10,000 schools or something like that. So that's the reason I've called him on stage. Siddharth, you know, we just heard from the Chancellor, they cater to 140,000 students, okay? And about changing the criteria for admissions, okay? And you are a feeder system into that. When you do school sports and stuff like that, it's with a view to getting the excellence out in
talking to one of the top footballers. Not anyone else.
No, that's a very valid point. You know, we're discussing things across the spectrum here. At one level, I requested Inigo to come on stage out here because he represents one of the biggest brands in the world, okay, which is built on a feeder system. Unless that feeder system is there, he cannot create that brand, okay? So if we in India need to create brands of a sporting ilk, which are of world standards and which have valuations of over $1 billion, etc., the systemic issues involved have to be addressed, okay? Which is why I was talking to the Chancellor here, and he says he's only in between out there. The feeder system has to come up out there, which is why I got you on stage out there. We do have from the schools out here, I think there is a principal and a head of sports out here. Please, can you come up on stage? Can we get another chair for him, please? Okay? No, the chair will be put there. Can we have a chair out here, please? Please, can you come up on stage? Is there a principal around as well? From one of the schools? I thought that, okay. Please come up on stage. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Can I just ask you a very blunt question? Do we at all pay any attention to sports in a meaningful manner in schools, or are we just happy that one or two people make it to the national level based on purely their extraordinary skill, and we are happy with that? This is a direct question to you.
Actually, schools, I am talking about the Hindi. This is not problem Hindi.
नहीं नहीं, प्लीज हिंदी में व्याख्यान कीजिए साहब.
India language problem is very well in school level of trainers. So some children are not attention for English because learner is outside the villages and we are working for some children in village.
लेकिन साहब स्कूल के बारे में बात कीजिए. स्कूल में मुझे ये बताइए कि आपके स्कूल में कितने बच्चे हैं?
2000 स्टूडेंट्स.
2000 स्टूडेंट हैं. उसमें से कुछ लोग अपनी काबिलियत के बल पर वो नेशनल्स पे चले जाते हैं, लेकिन सिस्टमिक रूप से हम क्या उन स्कूल्स में इंटरवेंशन करते हैं कि भाई आप में ये पोटेंशियल, ये प्रतिभा हमें नज़र आती है और उस प्रतिभा को उभारने के लिए हम ये स्टेप्स ले रहे हैं?
डेफिनेटली सर, जो मैंने वर्क किया अपने स्कूल में, आई वर्किंग 18 ईयर इन DPS सोसाइटी गाजियाबाद बसुंधरा. जब ज्वाइन किया था तो चिल्ड्रन इज वेरी टैलेंटेड स्टूडेंट, बट सम टाइम वी आर ऑर्गेनाइज स्लोली उनको स्टेबलाइज किया, उनको कहते हैं ना बाइंड अप करते हैं, ग्रोइंग करते हैं किया. तो सम चिल्ड्रन वेरी टैलेंटेड, सम इज वीक, बट उनको भी वो टैलेंट वर्किंग हार्ड करके, जैसे प्रथम बोल रहा था कि कोचेस इज नॉट अकाउंटेबिलिटी कोचेस. तो पर्सनली एज ए HOD, एज ए PE क्लासेस के बजाय हमने एक करिकुलम बनाया इंटर हाउस मैचेस का, इंटर स्कूल मैचेस का. तो जो वीक स्टूडेंट थे वो भी नेशनल और स्टेट लेवल पे आ गए उस वर्किंग से. तो ग्रास रूट पे हमने उनको, जो नेशनल प्लेयर्स हैं वो तो टैलेंटेड है ही हैं, जो वर्किंग वीक प्लेयर्स हैं उनको भी हमने उन लोगों के साथ इंक्लूड करके और उस लेवल पर पहुंचा दिया.
जी, लेकिन प्रथम एक बात और कह रहा था, वो ये कह रहा था कि जब ये अमेरिका गया तो ये काफ़ी पीछे था इन टर्म्स ऑफ द कहाँ पर होना चाहिए था उसको. तो यदि हम सही कोचिंग सही वक्त पर नहीं देंगे तो गाड़ी कैसे आगे बढ़ेगी? और अगर स्कूल्स उसमें इन्वेस्ट नहीं करेंगे कि सबसे अच्छे कोचेज लाएं वहाँ पे, तो गाड़ी तो आगे बढ़ने वाली नहीं है.
सर, इसी सिनेरियो को मैंने चेंज किया है. मैं पर्सनली अपने स्कूल और सोसाइटी की बात करता हूँ, और जहाँ मैं वर्किंग कर रहा हूँ वहाँ सिस्टम ये डेवलप किया है कि हम उस लेवल पे कैसे फाइट करें. जो USA के कोच बुलाने चाहिए हमें, या फॉरनर कोचेस को अपॉइंट करना चाहिए. बट नाउ सिनेरियो हैज़ बीन चेंज. हमारे इंडिया कोचेस भी हार्ड वर्क कर रहे हैं अब, क्योंकि फिटनेस, अभी हम लोग सुबह मॉर्निंग में सर बात कर रहे थे, टेक्नोलॉजी, फाइनेंस, ये लोग जब वहाँ पर आ गए हैं, इंटरफेयर कर रहे हैं, स्कूल लेवल पे भी इनको थोड़ा सा हेल्प करना चाहिए. जो ये हम लोग इम्प्लीमेंट करें वो होता नहीं है इंडिया में.
सिद्धार्थ, आई एम कमिंग स्ट्रेट टू यू.
और मैचेस, मैं एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ. CBSE ओनली 1 ईयर में एक ही CBSE इंटर क्लस्टर टूर्नामेंट ऑर्गेनाइज कर दिया. मैचेस मोर, सर बोल रहे थे कि मैचेस बहुत होने चाहिए. बच्चों को आज की डेट में, मैं अभी जैसे आप बोल रहे हैं 10th 11th 12th के बच्चे आ गए, वो स्टॉप कर गए. जो अराउजल था उनका, जो हम लोगों ने वर्क किया था, हार्ड वर्क किया था, 3 मंथ में वो बिल्कुल नीचे चला जाएगा.
Siddharth, I'm going to come to you and then I'm going to come to you in a second. Can I ask you a quick question, okay? It seems that there is some recognition that sports has to be an integral part of the personality development of young men and women. Oh, you've been running this foundation now for a couple of years.
Yes.
Do you see a change in the quality of the tournaments, etc., that you're running? And do you think that there can be a substantial intervention that is required out here?
Absolutely. If I talk about a particular program that we started 4 years back, I mean, if you talk about football itself, in the very first year we had around 30-35 schools, participating. But in the 4th year we had almost 1,180 registrations in place. And for the next season we already have schools, kids, PTs trying to participate. So once you have the right program and a program that provides right linkages, it provides marketing opportunities, it provides recognition opportunities. Kids take it up, PTs take it up, principals take it up, schools take it up. So a lot has happened. I mean, the way it has, I mean, as you said in the previous forum that sports is growing at the rate of 20% per annum. But that is evident everywhere, right? So it is more of a demand-led growth rather than supply-led. Demand is going up. With 17 lakhs registered schools in this country, of course, they all have to compete with each other, and sports is, one aspect that they have to take up very seriously, and thankfully it is happening.
Okay. Thank you, Siddharth. I am very grateful to Chancellor Mittal that he's been here. We're going to continue this discussion for another 5 minutes, but he's going to run for a meeting, for a very important meeting. And I thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Sir, SportEX.Asia is a movement. It's a movement which doesn't belong to any organization. It's for evangelizing sports in our country. It's about the thought processes need to get changed, and it is wonderful to see that people such as yourselves, who are great influencers and decision makers who will impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of students, are open to understanding that the sector is changing, that sports will offer an employment opportunity for maybe 20% of the kids out there. And if that recognition is then translated into your syllabuses, into the way you approach things in the schools and colleges, etc., then that would be a wonderful thing. Sir, thank you very much. We are going to continue this discussion in half a second. Please, gentlemen. Yes, the young gentleman here. Please ask questions. Guys, we're getting late for lunch. Those of you who are extremely hungry, there is lunch hanging around out there, but we're going to be winding up in another few minutes. After lunch, we have a riveting session from Red FM, from the Spanish delegation, who are going to talk about an extremely exciting game called Pelota. And we're going to have a session which is going to be a rocking session on e-games. Then there's going to be a session on squash. There's a lot happening after lunch. So please don't eat too much of lunch, otherwise it's going to get you to sleep, guys. Please ask the questions. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So as sir said, that in our school, all the weak players, we are working, and they've all become national and state players. For us, national and state levels, they don't mean anything literally, because my peers will agree with me. They're just good for college admissions. I think that's it. What about ahead? Children who are weak in studies and are good in sports, they'll make it somewhere to national and state levels, but then they don't have a way to move forward. So my question is, LPU is just one university. I would ask, I believe more colleges will come up with this initiative for young students to do well once they pass out and join colleges and universities. So what's the way ahead is what I'm asking.
That's a great question, and I totally agree with you. You can have a seat, please. I totally agree with you. I've been in your shoes, right? And after nationals, there is no way further ahead. So here, I don't know the Spanish system, and I would love to hear from you as to how that works in Spain. But in the US, you have this organization called the NCAA. And you have different federations for all the different sports. So you have NBA, you have National Football League, all of those. Now, after school, after college, if you perform well, right, then one of these leagues would pick you up, right, and make you play in those leagues. And those leagues are highly branded, like the IPL, right? And then that gives a student who is now sort of matured into becoming a professional player an opportunity to make some money as well and live a nice life. And a lot of my friends who were in university with me in the US, they aspired to get drafted into the NFL or into the NBA. And they created a very interesting fanfare around this entire drafting process that sort of, gave people the motivation to aspire to sort of get into those leagues. And so in India, we need that to sort of happen as well. So maybe down the road, IPL would start coming into the universities and start drafting students from the universities into the leagues. ISL hopefully will do the same down the road. And so once that starts happening, then I think we'll start closing the loop, which is something that you spoke about yesterday.
The good news is people are listening. The good news is, my sense is, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. If you heard in the morning, I think all the corporates and everybody else was discussing about what is that one good role model that will happen, and within a couple of years, everybody else will follow. Okay? So I think by the time you hit 2022, it would happen, okay, in that sense, okay. But hey, I say this to all of you young men and women. Professional athletes, professional players are only 0.1%. Amateurs are another 3-4%. Leisure players are 80%. We discussed this right now. Don't forget that. And for all of these, there are business opportunities around that. If you find that you cannot be competing at the international level, at the top levels or whatever it is, right? That's not the end of the world. Correct? It's not the end of the world. You will find that in soccer, can you talk about the soccer structure? And how many people in Spain are playing soccer? And how do they get up the system?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's tremendous, the number of children that are into the football federation in Spain playing football, any kind of football. Normally they start with something called Football 7, which is a little bit more adapted to younger people. So the system in Spain, and I was agreeing with you, is different than in the United States, but it's a little bit similar. I fully agree with you that there has to be a way to close the gap between professional sports and universities and education system, because if not, you don't see where you are going, no? When you are in a university playing sports. In Spain, what we do is to identify it much earlier. So the sport brands ourselves are into the educational system, having a strong academic and grassroots. So we identify the talent ourselves, each club. And in our case, for example, we have 2,000 children already playing in our structure. We are educating them, of course, which is the first thing we do. But we are now recruiting children with 4 years old. 4 years old. And just, they are not even in the educational system, but we have identified that they want to play football. So we start with them, we accompany the families, and later on, naturally, we identify who has the talent to develop further to the professional teams. And for example, we have people that arrive to the professional team with 15 years old. So you have to wait until they are 18, they are graduated.
I think this is the right time for me to introduce Jyoti ji, who's the director of RD schools, and they are playing a key role in education in the country and are looking at sports in a major way. Ma'am, you've been listening to the debate about how schools have to be the feeder to the schools and colleges, etc., etc. How do you, as an institution, look at this whole aspect of sports, and what is the recognition that you are beginning to pay to sports?
Good afternoon, everyone. As an educator, I've been listening to this very, very fascinated, listening to the sports people, listening to the educators, and what I am concerned about, I don't want to sound like the devil's advocate, but at the risk of sounding like one, although my school is doing a lot in pushing sports, I'm also a little worried about where our students are going to play these sports. It's not because I'm a city campus that I'm talking about this. We have enough space. We are also creating more spaces for our students. But given the air quality level that we are dealing with in Delhi, often schools are shut down. They're not even allowed to come to school. Forget going to the field. Most days I'm announcing red days and maroon days and purple days where students are not allowed to step out of their classrooms. So that has become a huge challenge for me to create sports people. Because parents want to know, do you have air purifiers in the classrooms? I do. All right. Are we monitoring the air quality? We are. So where are our students going to play? So what we are doing is, we are now creating more spaces which are confined, which also have air quality levels that are protected, and giving students the opportunity to play sports within those confined spaces. So I'm wondering whether they can play golf in confined spaces. I'm wondering whether they can play equestrian sports in confined spaces. Not really. So what my school is doing in a city campus, it's trying to push people the Vishwanathan Anand way. All right, come back to chess. All right, play table tennis. Play sports where you can be fit, breathe air that is breathable, and still be sports people. So while I'm fascinated with the idea of creating sports, and I believe schools must do it, I was listening and I thought it was pathetic that when someone said a sports person also scored 92%, look at the pressure we are putting on children who are sports people. Why should a sports person of any significance get 92% in an exam? For God's sake, that exam is obsolete for that person, right? If a Sachin Tendulkar was asked to, it's a very, very beaten example I'm giving you, but if a Sachin Tendulkar was forced into giving his exam, and most parents will force you to give an exam, they'll say do everything that is academically correct and then go into sports, because sports may not feed you. All right, so become an engineer like most of our cricketers are, whether you look at Kumble or you look at all these people, all right, they are engineers, and then they're lucky enough to have cracked it in sports. But not all people are lucky enough to crack it in sports, so they will be told, please study. Once you've got a degree, then go into sports, but it's too late.
That's absolutely right. And you know what? I've been watching the faces lit up of all of these kids out there when you were talking out there.
And that is their worry. I can understand if he has a board exam to give, day after tomorrow, he's probably wondering what he's doing, wasting his time here. He should be cramming facts which he'll never use all his life. I crammed a lot of algebra. I've never used it after school. Never. I don't know where it's used. I've learned the Pythagoras theorem. I've never used it after school. So I think schools also need to realize there has to be a significance in education, and for that it has to come from above. As long as we are catering to those needs, we'll only be creating herds. We will never be able to break that sky ceiling. We'll have to break that glass ceiling.
Jyoti, the quick question there. The environmental issue, we hope is a short-term issue.
I hope so too, but I doubt it.
Okay, so it's a medium-term issue. If it's not a medium-term issue, then I think we'll have to move our capital to Daulatabad, which Muhammad bin Tughlaq did
but then he was called a mixture of opposites and he was called a madman, right? Because he kept shifting capitals.
Okay,
right?
But very quick question there. I think that identifying talent and nurturing them and giving them the right coaching is critical, not only from the perspective of development of the character of the students, and we heard from the crowd out here that corporates give undue weightage positively if you are a bright mind, but if you played sport. They definitely do. I've recruited lots of people in my life, and I know that that is always a plus in that sense. So to that extent, assuming that it is a short-term or a medium-term issue, is it not possible if you said that, hey, it's not important for a student to get 92% because it does not matter, because he's going to get employment opportunity in a sector which is entirely different, okay? Then in that case, would it not be sensible to send bunches of these kids to maybe a Ludhiana to go and work out there for 1 month out, etc. out there? Is that something that is a possibility from a Delhi context?
It's more than a possibility. We are already working on it. We're creating partnerships with schools around India and even outside India. Because we are an international school and we offer physical education actually as an academic course. It's not that go and play PE for half an hour and then come back to Riga. PE is an actual, physical education is an actual serious course in international education. Having said that, to play actual sports, we are having partnerships with schools across India and outside where the pollution levels may not be so high, where if you are able to tap that talent and see that talent, we are okay if that student wants to go and spend an exchange and go and work and play somewhere else for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then come back. Exam is not something to die for, believe me. They will make their mark in the field that they need to make it. That's what I believe in, that's what our schools believe in.
I wish I had you as my principal when I was growing up,
I wish I had a similar principle too. I might have done something different. Yeah.
No, but on a more serious plane, I have to sort of ask you, Jyoti ji, another pointed question, which is that, we all know that sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry overseas. It is already becoming a billion-dollar industry in India. And we know that the employment opportunities that are going to be generated out of sports are humongous. In fact, you were sitting in the audience out there, you heard my statement that it is going to be like the IT sector as we go forward. So is it not incumbent on us and for people such as yourself who've got this great attitude for you to be talking to, the directors and the owners of other schools, etc., to be transmitting this point, for evangelizing sports in education. This SportEX platform is about evangelizing sports. So ma'am, would you be game for evangelizing sports as a opportunity among schools?
I would definitely say yes. I can see the sparkle in your eyes already, but I don't know whether I can make a difference to yours. You're already sitting for the board exam, right? But definitely I would like to have a partnership with all schools that are sitting here and others who can be put to us through SportEX. And more than that, I would also be happy working with the policymakers.
That's
because
fantastic.
If they've reduced the syllabus by 50% yesterday, I hope they can also carve a different path for people who are interested in sports and not beat them to death saying you have to achieve 90% and then do well in sports. And the cultural and sports quota in Delhi University is probably 1 seat per college, where there are 1,000 people killing each other to get that 1 seat, right? So it is pretty difficult. Population is a very, very strong negative there because everybody is contesting for that 1 seat. So we really need to open out, and someone did say there are so many more schools than colleges, which is why private colleges are mushrooming. It's good that some private colleges are giving scholarships because otherwise private colleges are hugely expensive. And not everybody can afford that kind of private college. And maybe you haven't cracked it to a national level, but maybe you're a very, very good sports person. But will that college give you that scholarship if you haven't cracked it to that national or international level? That's important.
But Jyoti I'm a huge optimist. And I'll tell you why. 1 or 2 people start doing it in an Indian context, jugaad hai, jaldi se usko copy karo. So if some of you who are, sort of visionaries and who have the passion in them and you can see the writing on the wall, if some of you start going down that line, you will find that all the rest will follow very, very quickly. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I have dealt with enough businesses in India. I have dealt with enough people. Psychologically, we are geared towards, well, not bhed chal, but here this is, sports chal in that sense, Pratham. Okay. My sense is that if you were to take the lead, and we would thank you, ma'am, for saying that you would be part of that change movement. I promise you that as part of SportEX, we will try and do a platform aimed specifically at schools. We will have some university people out there also, because if schools are a feeder for university, they will look up to what the indications from the university are. We do know that overseas universities obviously pay great attention to that in any case, okay? I think the Indian universities also have to signal that, okay, they are willing to make that change. We would be very grateful to you and through you to talk to the other schools, etc., so that this message can go across to hundreds and thousands of schools that exist in this country.
May I just request SportEX, because you do have your network, to not just put me with other schools, because schools are like-minded. We want to break that barrier. We want to give our students the best. Can you also put us there with the policy makers?
Absolutely.
So that we can work on giving credits to sports people. Extra credits. Not for any state level, national level. Number of hours spent on sports. Fitness. That will change us as a nation, believe me. And if they get credits for that, those credits should be measured, and then parents will also be happy that if he's spending so many hours on the field, he's getting something out of it, even if he doesn't become the next Sachin Tendulkar. At least he'll get an admission in college. So let's work towards getting credits for all our sports people.
I think this is a fantastic insight. I have to say, ma'am, I'm very grateful to you because this platform is about finding solutions. We understood that, yes, the writing is on the wall. What are the solutions? And one of the solutions that or two of the solutions that we've discussed is, A, let's start talking. Let's start broad-basing that talk. Second is, what do you back it up with? You back it up with credits. This suggestion needs to go to the policymakers, to the NCERTs of the world and the ICSEs of the world, etc. And we will definitely help to make that dialogue possible. But we look forward to your active support in that, ma'am.
More than active.
All right. Fantastic. There's some people wanting to ask questions. Please ask, more than a couple of people. Go on. I can see that this session is riveting, and what Jyoti ji has been saying has galvanize people. So everybody's holding their lunch hunger pangs back.
I'm sorry about that.
No.
Yeah, I have two quick points here. We talked about the educators, we talked about the universities, but two important things is the parents itself. In India, we only look at a university or a college on academics. We don't see the sporting facilities, we don't see how they're doing in sports. Like you look at a St. Stephen's, oh, it's got a cutoff of 99%, 98%, but what about the sporting facilities or about how good they are in taking out sportsmen? You never hear from whether any of the universities which sportsmen have come out. You only hear of a banker or a lawyer or a educationist. The other thing is coaching is not a profitable occupation in India. So you don't get good people into coaching because if you don't pay, you're not going to get anybody. So how you think that can be handled?
Okay. Given your first question, yes, because our society is largely driven by academics. I come from a school that's Cambridge, and Cambridge gives grades to the entire world, but it gives marks to India. Because India is a mark-driven society. We feel so happy to say that my child got 99.9%. All right? 90% is fail. So we are a mark-driven society, and so we celebrate academic achievements more than sports. It's not that St. Stephen's and all haven't produced sports people. But I would say more sports people have come from the fringe. If you look at a Dhoni, he didn't come from St. Stephen's. He came from a small place in Bihar. So those are the places that are really creating sports people. The St. Stephen's or the Hindu or whatever those colleges are going down the academic route. They'll probably become the next bureaucrats. Right? So having said that, once we start celebrating sports, our colleges will start boasting of sports. At the moment, even if they create a sports person, the college portfolio will say that the next, for example, Shashi Tharoor was from St. Stephen's. They will boast that the Secretary General could have been from St. Stephen's. But they won't tell you which sportsman came from that college because it's not such a celebrated area. Talking about the money and the remuneration for coaches, I couldn't agree more. I'm of the firm belief that if you pay peanuts, you only get monkeys. Right? And teaching faculty has been paid very poorly for a very long time in our country. With the 7th Pay Commission, we've kind of come on par, but nothing in comparison to other industries. And the same goes for coaches. And if they live in this world, they also have to feed their children. They also have to maintain a certain lifestyle. So again, the government has to come in. They cannot say create sports people at Olympics when they pay peanuts to their coaches. Other than the cricket coaches, of course, who get paid lakhs by BCCI. So every coach at the school level, change the salary structure for those people, and more people will opt for sports, like I said.
Thank you very much. That's hugely insightful, and you can see by the the clapping there that you've struck a chord out there.
Thank you.
And may I just say, ma'am, the young students who are sitting in front of you are all national level players in their own right.
And they're still stressed about their board exams.
And they're still stressed about the board exam. Somebody's in skating, somebody's in tennis. The young lady there who's speaking through there is a national tennis player. There are football players out here. And also in the house we have Arman Ibrahim and Aditya Patel, who are Ferrari and Lamborghini drivers. Guys, there you go. Okay, round of applause for them. They've come through the system despite all the problems, and we're going to hear a little bit more about them after lunch. So after lunch sessions are riveting. I say this again to you, eat light, not because there's less food out there, but because they're riveting sessions after lunch as well, okay? Aditya and Arman, thank you for being here, and we're going to hear your story after lunch, but these are the people who have made it through the system despite the system, ma'am.
You need a standing ovation. Yes?
A standing ovation, yeah, all right, okay.
Literally, if you've beaten that path and reached there, you really deserve it because you cracked both.
This is not just for Arman and Aditya, but all for
all these people
for
here,
all of these
really.
young kids who are national level players out there.
But I'm not even going to talk about the stress you're going through. Yeah? Lovely.
Questions, please, quickly. Yeah, one quick question, please. And the students have to ask these questions. Guys, you have to ask the question. Yahi mauka hai.
I'm representing one foundation called Footballing's Foundation. I had experience of European football and education. I just two suggestions to my experience to the esteemed panelists. One is if you talk about the sports and education, and in Europe, sports is education. So just change the terminology, sports as education. It will change the dimension of mindsets of the parents.
Absolutely.
And number two, I did it with BMC school last month, 600 BMC school. We create a curriculum for football, and the parents also happy to get marks in a football as a subject. It will help the mental frame of the parents. And number two, the school and colleges in Europe, and particularly my experience in Spain and Germany for the last 10 years, what I've seen, school and colleges has to be her own team to play a competitive leagues. Then it will work well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Any thoughts, ma'am?
I think they were more.
Okay, so Siddharth, you got to address this one out here. You know, yesterday we heard about how you need to put sports and entertainment together to create sportainment or whatever it is. I think this is an extremely interesting thought out there, that how do we coin something, and can we coin something as part of this round table out here, which we can try propagating, all of us put together. Sport education, you know, some such nomenclature which sort of binds the two things together so that people start talking about
We believe in this thing, and we've been operating in this domain for good almost 2 decades, and we've been fairly successful. I mean, if you go by the numbers, not all students they can go to schools and colleges. I'll tell you, you know, while we had one program running in Delhi and we had 32 centers, we called it Khelo Delhi. We launched it some 15 years back. So in due course, what we realized that kids who were coming to play, धीरे धीरे बड़े हो गए, 10 साल 15 साल तो बहुत समय होता है. So mostly, you know, they would be in 8th, and फिर उनका 12th आ गया, and 12th के बाद suddenly they'll start calling, their parents would start calling कि भाई हम क्या करें, हमारा बच्चा इस स्कूल में जा रहा है, उस स्कूल में कॉलेज में जाना है, कटआउट्स बहुत हाई हैं, can we get, you know, some support in you know, in those colleges because of the kind of certificates we have accumulated. And I realized that most of these kids were getting, you know, between 45% to 55%. Now the first thing that you realize that इनको ये भी नहीं पता कि 44 या 45% से, let's not talk about your systems and colleges should do this or that, कि उनको यही information नहीं है कि भाई इस 45% को लेके वो करें क्या, वो 3 महीने तक धक्के खाते रहते हैं यहाँ. So first of all, we try and save that time. So we you know, created a program called Incredible Campus, and we invited number of people in
educational programs, etc. It is a well-known fact that across the world, apart from the political leaders, like, you know, after Obama gets away from there, you know, as the president out there, these guys get the top billing, etc. But the guys from sports attract the maximum sort of attention. Alex Ferguson, for instance, is the highest paid motivational speaker today. And you will be also, it's also interesting to note that his book has been given by the Prime Minister to the entire cabinet to say, look at what leadership entails out there. Now think about it. I think education as exists in our country is a medium to push people into a job. I think what is being discussed around the table is how do we create leaders? And leaders have attributes to them that are beyond whether you've crammed up a text. Okay? The school that I came from, trust me, in my time, if anybody got, in today's terms, more than 92%, he was considered a bloody genius. In today's terms, okay? In our time, it was like, you know, getting a 70% was like getting 99% or whatever it is. He was considered a bloody genius. But 95% of all the people from my school have done tremendously well in school, after school. Tremendously well. And we often ask ourselves the question that, you know, hey, we never studied for exams and stuff like that, okay? So how come we've done well? And when we introspect, we sort of figure out that what we learned on the sporting field, what we learned outside of the classroom, which we did 95% of the time because we had no time for studies, okay? Even to do homework, I think we had only 45 minutes at night, and in any case, all the younger kids were always going to sleep immediately after dinner. So there was no time. We had no time. It wasn't we were, you know, sort of idling our time. Pratham, do you want to just talk about that?
Yes. So in the middle school that I was in Jalandhar, I'm originally from Jalandhar. In the middle school that I was in, the school captain used to be the student with the highest marks in class 10, right? And I think that's true for many schools. But in our school, the school captain was not someone usually who had 95% or the highest percentage. He was someone who was sort of well-rounded. He was doing well in sports, he was doing well on the stage, as well as in studies. And so I think that recognition that was given to sports leaders as house captains, as prefects, that really made everyone else as juniors sort of believe that if they do well in sports, you know, they can become the next house captains and then get that leadership lesson from there and then do well in life later on. So I think what our school did, we both went to the same school, and I think that focus on making sure that even the sports students who are doing well in sports can become house captains was something that was really tremendous. Changed a lot in terms of you know, how we viewed our lives moving forward after school.
The two gentlemen going out there were from the Indian Olympic Committee and stuff like that, and I'm really happy that they were listening to all of this because they are the other guys who will help bring about this change, and we'll talk to them after this, okay? Last question, please.
I just wanted to make a comment.
Please identify yourself. And
my name is Ronak Sahani. I'm actually the co-founder of Grand Slam Baseball. It's the national umbrella organization for bringing baseball to India. So we've partnered up with about 20 schools in Delhi to offer baseball. It was interesting listening to you all. What I wanted to actually talk about is that we've talked about outside support for sports, but we haven't really talked about what sports can do to actually create a better environment for itself. So let me just bring out a point about pollution. You had talked about pollution. So what we've done now is that we've actually designed our curriculum to accommodate those 2 months of pollution. And in that what we do is we make kids actually design their own curriculums for a year. So our, you know, the Indian society, it's all about doing, but it's not about planning. So when you even look at an athlete's life, you have to talk about what their yearly targets are going to be, what their monthly targets are going to be, what their weekly targets are going to be, right? And how that's going to factor into the academics, how that's going to balance out. So they actually design their own schedules. And the second thing is that baseball is a statistics-driven sport. So we actually teach them how to calculate their own statistics. And these statistics, by the way, are shared with the NCAA. So I sit with the American Baseball Coaches Association every year. We figure out better ways to actually calculate the statistics in Indian schools and feed it to NCAA, and we've actually sent 3 or 4 baseball players from India to actually go and play baseball in US universities already. So that's what sports can do, I feel.
Fantastic, that's great. Jyoti ji, any comments there?
You're talking about tweaking the curriculum, and we've also worked very hard in not just tweaking the curriculum, but also tweaking the calendar. Because the calendar in Indian schools gives the maximum break in summer because the temperatures are very high. Now what we've done is, but it's not polluted in summer. The pollution starts when the weather is beautiful. It starts from October upwards, right? So we've tweaked our calendar, we've reduced our summer break, we've increased our winter break, we've increased our Diwali break to give students more chance to play outside, because whether it's sweaty or not, believe me, children like playing outside. They really don't care if it's sweating or not, and then they come back to their air-conditioned room, so that's fine. We also have something like cross-curricular, like you did. Suppose they take up a world figure like Pele. Our students don't just learn about football when they're studying Pele, they do mathematics through Pele. For example, they will go to the football field and measure it. They will see which angle they need to shoot at to score that goal. They will look at the football and say, why does it have 36 pieces to it? They will work on the mathematics of it. They will go into the robotics and makers lab and they'll create a robot that can actually shoot like Pele. So it's become cross-curricular, so it creates excitement, and even our 3-year-olds know who Pele is. So it's integrating sports in the curriculum, and we do it through various sports players, which go into the curriculum area then.
That's fantastic.
Right.
You know, I think that we can see that there is, this is rich material to be discussed at a SportEX thing only for schools and colleges. I don't think we're going to be able to cram in all of these things in the 45 minutes of discussion out here. But, you know, I would like to thank the eminent panelists out here for a wonderful sort of debate that we've been having on the new term is sports is education, as the gentleman out there mentioned. And we're going to give you due recognition for that. Please let us have your full name, and we shall talk about that. Yes. Yes, Kaushik, of course. Yes, Kaushik. Yes. And maybe you should be part of that whole thing that we will have, yeah?
In the corner of the goal, I need a calculation. And calculation is a fraction of a second. Much better than mathematicians. So you need to study. Education is primary, then sports.
You know, the footballers out there are beaming because they're saying, oh, I already did my algebra out there. Okay.
Because this is important, because in a more fraction of a second, you have to know where the position of the goalkeeper. You know, the last, Coutinho's goal. When you shoot the goal, it's cornered the goal. So Coutinho has in mind where is the goal post. So it's like a mathematics.
Thank you,
it's
Kaushik.
education.
That point is very well made. You know, the top left-hand corner is where you got to shoot.
Your mind.
Just after 10 seconds, where you got to shoot for,
not
get out of this door.
Fraction of a second, better than a mathematician.
Just after 10 seconds, you got to shoot for, get out of this door, turn right, and you'll hit the lunch room out there.
Everybody,
okay?
not me.
Gentlemen, thank you very much, and we will continue this discussion after lunch. We have some riveting sessions, as I keep saying to you. Red FM, they ran a campaign across India. RJ Sachin is going to come and make the presentation of who he has invited. Ma'am, you must stay and see what these guys have done, what individuals are doing in various parts of India to be promoting sports out there. And then we have these fantastic sessions on esports, on baseball, on squash, etc. So please come and join us for lunch. And as can we have some mementos for the eminent panel of speakers here? Siddharth, thank you very much. Really appreciate all your things. Guys, please be back here in 35 minutes. Would greatly appreciate that. And by the way, the doors are locked. Nobody's allowed to go out after that. There are no free lunches, as you know. In life, there are no free lunches. You have your lunch and you come right back out here.